Dr. Wonkite. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing?
Nothing.
Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
What's the matter with that cat there?
Must be full of reefer.
Full of reefer?
Yeah, man.
You mean that cat's high?
Sailing.
Sailing?
Lightly.
We now wander off the beaten path with an update from the Reefer Reporter.
Hello and welcome to the Reefer Reporters with news hosts Kim Cooper and myself, Graham. We are your audio digest of the previous week's Canadian and international cannabis news. It's March the 4th, 2019. Legacy420.com news desk here on 420radio.ca. Hello, Kim. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty good today, Al, up here in the Great White North. You know, we're in March and it's almost spring, but it certainly doesn't look that way up here. I'll tell you that. But it's moving forward, lots going on in the cannabis community and the news. And going through the story in the past 7 days, man, it was hard to choose.
Yeah, it was. There's a load packed full pile of stories. I went through so many I thought my computer was going to crash.
I know. I had too many windows open, and it was really tough making the decision on what to choose. We usually whittle it down to 5 or 6. We got more than that today, so we should get at her.
Yeah, we should. And we're going to start in Ottawa because they have unveiled a no-cost expedited pardons for Canadians convicted of cannabis possession.
Yeah, finally some information coming out on pardons. A lot of people are saying it's a diversion tactic because of what's going on with Trudeau right now in government and calls for his resignation and so forth. But whatever the reason is, it's a long-awaited plan that people that are been convicted of low-level convictions on cannabis offenses in the past are very much looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, it is a pardon. Unfortunately, some people would like to see impungement instead, that to have them gone completely instead of just being covered up. Because just as they're covered up, they're not gone. They're still there, right?
Yeah, that's right. People are saying it's a good start, but does it go far enough? That's the big question, right? Should it be just expunged from the record? And that way, it's completely gone. Pardon. It's great on paper. It might help you get, a passport and get over the border and good for employment purposes and that kind of thing.
Right, yeah.
But does it go far enough? That's the big question.
Yeah, that's right. It's still there and it's still hanging. It still come back and bite you at some time. And yeah, there should be an impungement, have it removed. And then I guess the question comes down to, what about those people who paid for a pardon for simple possession to be removed? Should they be compensated for something that everybody else is getting for free?
Yeah, exactly. This has cost people money over the years.
Yeah.
A lot of money. Between 250,000 and 500,000 Canadians have carried the weight of a cannabis conviction. That's a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they say there's up to 500,000 Canadians with cannabis convictions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of people. So this has been a burden that a lot of people have been carrying for a very long time. It's a start, but questionable as whether or not it goes far enough.
That's right. Well, critics have long argued that cannabis amnesty will not simply be a matter of looking up names and hitting the delete button. The police forces across the country enter drug possession charges in a database for the RCMP. and so they're looking at there's more to that than just say get rid of that person's cannabis conviction, because there could be outlying factors that they want to look into to make sure that
there shouldn't be underlying factors that they want to look into. Conviction is a conviction. Circumstances shouldn't matter. The plant is legal now. Those charges wouldn't have existed today, so they should be gone. It's pretty much as simple as that.
That's right. Well, they say, according to law enforcement officials, they say just to go in and eliminate everybody's possession charges will give an uneven result. But you see that going on in other places, like down in the U.S., where there's states that are legalizing it, and they've come up with a computer program that is going through these things and removing records.
Right.
Like,
and they're
this
doing
doesn't seem so difficult to me, but it seems to be they're making it out that way.
Absolutely. They are doing it elsewhere, so don't tell us that it cannot be done here.
Correct.
Oh, that's not true. It's being, as you said, it's being done all over the United States. New York is the latest one to jump on board with this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Many states are doing proactive advancements in erasing people's records for a product that is now legal, and they realize they shouldn't have been charged in the first place. So there's no reason that Ottawa can't look at this further.
That's right. Well, NDP member MP Murray Rankin, he says now is the time to let the minister know that the pardons are not enough. Expungement is the way to undo past wrongs. Canadians deserve freedom, not forgiveness. And he's right. And he has actually put a bill, I believe it's at the second reading, for expungement, but yet it's obviously not going to go anywhere if the Liberals are coming through with a pardon bill instead.
Well, this is the Liberal way around that, so that when this bill gets to the House floor to be voted on, they can say, well, we've already got something going here, so we don't need this. And therefore it dies. Right now it has legs because this wasn't announced until just this week. This has taken the legs away from that bill now, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. All right, on to our next story.
Yeah, sounds good. We're going to go from Ottawa to an individual province and take a look at Saskatoon.
That's right. Saskatchewan's First Nation files claim in court over cannabis dispensaries.
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting case. We've been following for a while now. There's a First Nations community just up in north of Regina in Saskatchewan, and they are operating on native land, and they are operating a medicinal as well as a recreational, open for recreational people, cannabis dispensary. They are not part of the LP system. They did not go through licensing through Health Canada, but they feel they have the right to operate because they are on native land and govern themselves with their own laws outside of provincial law. This is getting some legs, and it's going further.
That's right. It's right. Well, the Saskatchewan Liquor and Gaming Authority, which regulates cannabis sales, same here in Ontario and other provinces, they said that they warned the band that they were subject to provincial and federal laws when it comes to recreational cannabis. But the chief says the First Nations has a sovereign right to pass its own cannabis regulations. And we're seeing that more and more in places. They are passing their own regulations. Yeah,
they're claiming an inherent right. It's part of their Indigenous ancestry. It's part of their medicine bag that they had throughout the ages. It's part of their heritage. So they claim inherent right, as they do with many other products that they are allowed to govern themselves, as well as their land being owned by them and outside of the jurisdiction of provincial and federal governments. They're self-governing. So they want to take this further, and they want to go to court.
That's right. And, we're not seeing any of that going on here. We're here in Ontario, where the Ontario government is actually taking the First Nations place to court. There has been some raids at some of the locations, but not where the province has gone and tried to, shut them down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Here in Ontario, we have several First Nations that are operating cannabis dispensaries independently. Many communities are on board with their tribal elders, and clan is on board with it. They have, proclamations and the way to do things within their own territories. The ones that have experienced raids, those raids were taking place in conjunction with authorization from the tribal elders and from the chiefs. So it's not a matter of our police forces going on to tribal land without permission. They had permission to be there. So the ones that are experiencing raids don't have with their First Nation leaders. The ones that are operating and prospering, they have agreements with their First Nation leaders, and the province is leaving them alone.
Yeah. I see here this reserve where this battle is going on. It's home to 380 people.
Yeah, and their leaders are on board with this. They're the ones that have come up with the plan for them going forward to try and create a prosperous community and a new industry within their community to bring in some much needed dollars for the clan. So, I mean, this is going to be an interesting case, and it's going to have nationwide repercussions for sure, because it will be the model to follow for other First Nations up and coming that take this stand right now. So this is a story to watch for sure now that it is going to court.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, it will happen. It will have a probably effect right across the country. So, we'll have to keep an eye on this for sure. Yeah, for sure. Alrighty. Now, talking about other unhappy people and suing, I see here in the news that a Toronto cafe owner is suing the province of Ontario for over $1 million over a lost cannabis license.
Yeah, this is from Chris James. He opened a cafe in anticipation of expanding into the legal dispensary once the legalization went into effect. And he says after investing into signage and marketing and a knowledgeable staff, he was anticipating a lucrative investment, a return on his investment. But then along came Ford.
That's right. Yeah, that's what happened. Ford government, at one time, he talked about unlimited, lots of stores will be available out there for people to own and all that.
Yeah, that was his campaign promises, right?
Correct.
On the campaign trail, that's what he said. Vote for me, and this is what's going to happen. And then he won, and he got on stage, and he said, "Yep, that's what we're going to do." So people invested.
That's right. And now the government has changed their minds, and they're only opening 25 stores for right now. And they went and did this lottery thing. And a lot of businesses, and it's not just James's businesses here. I know of one in Kingston, same thing, where they got a store already looking to do something, and all of a sudden, bang, they were left out of the lottery.
Yeah, I can see this turning into some sort of a class action or a multi-defendant claim going on here because a lot of people are in the same boat.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Their lawyer says that this is about the fact that the government led people by the nose, and at the last moment, the government presented this completely arbitrary and completely narrow-focused regime.
Yeah, that's pretty much what happened. At the moment, the last moment when the government just arbitrarily changed its mind, everybody went down.
Yeah. Well, according to his lawyer here, his complainant is not only looking for money, but he also wants to get his retail cannabis license.
Yeah.
Good
idea.
They say that
he wants them to do something about the way the system is working.
Yeah, they say here that he's eager to engage in the market. He's got the knowledge, he's got the creativity, and he's got a great plan to do well in the sector. Well, you can think of Abby Roach at the Hot Box with her new business that she had started, hoping to get a license, and like I mentioned, the business out in Kingston.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure there are hundreds out there that were ready to go, with branded material ready to go. I mean, you could reach back as far as people like Wayne that were going to invest in it and then saw in advance the shit show that it was going to be and backed away. At least he was one of the smart ones that saw the writing on the wall in advance.
That's true. Right, that's right. And now this guy's business is named Cannabis and Coffee. I don't know, maybe he knows tomorrow.
Yeah.
And people are going into the store looking for cannabis.
Yeah. Well, all of his cups have the branded material on them. They're all with a pot leaf on it, and they're like, well, okay, so where's the cannabis? And here we are in Ontario with the consumption laws taking place under Smoke-Free Ontario Act. He can't even offer a lounge space.
No, you can't even do that. And, someone say, well, why doesn't he just drop, why doesn't he change his business name? Well, there's a lot more to it than just changing a business name.
That's right. He has, everything is done. Everything is branded. All the signs are made. All the paraphernalia has been made. The cubs, the printing. I mean, think about what goes into doing a branded business. There's T-shirts, there's coffee mugs, there's stickers, there's posters, there's advertising, there's signage, letterhead, everything.
Uniforms,
everything.
maybe.
Uniforms, your receipts on your cash register. I mean, everything. Absolutely everything is branded. It's a big cost to just change it, especially when you have to change the logo.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. Well, talking about changing things, let's slip into our next story here. In Edmonton, which is changing zoning laws so cannabis stores can open in shopping malls. Don't children visit shopping malls?
I'm pretty sure they do. Edmonton, the city of Edmonton doesn't seem to have a problem with changing things to make their life easier. That's for sure, no matter what the cost, even if it isn't monetary. In this case, this is a dispensary that wants to operate in a shopping mall. So in order for it to have the space in the shopping mall, it was against the current bylaw regulations on 200 meters from libraries and schools and within 200 meters of public parks, public recreation facilities, public health sites like hospitals. Well, the mall has stores in it that fall into those categories. Therefore,
and the zoning laws were set up for separate buildings, like a standalone store, nothing else.
Right. So city council made a provision for the shopping mall. Yeah.
And they did this because
because of Aurora. Aurora Cannabis is planning to open up a store in the West Edmonton Mall. Well, the store itself would be nearly a kilometer away from the community hospital. The mall level itself, just across the street of the facility, puts it in violation. So Aurora Cannabis, one of the larger companies here in Canada under the LP system, lobbied the city of Edmonton to change the law.
That's right. Yeah. Let's see. They say that the community league and other stuff point out the mall with 24-hour security, no exterior advertising, and there are a lot of different corridors and corners where stores can be obscured from some of the places children would focus on by having it in the mall.
Yeah. So nowhere near probably the food court, nowhere near any of the little, children's money coin operated rides that are in the center of the mall. Nowhere near any kids stores or toy stores. And it is true. Some of these malls are huge, and there are obscure corridors and hallways where something like this would fit in just fine, and nobody would even know it was there because nobody goes down that little alleyway in the mall. So, there are places that it could fit. The thing that is a thorn in my side is that if this was, say, a head shop that was in violation, would the city of Edmonton care?
I don't know. Interesting.
I doubt it. The fact that it was Aurora Cannabis with their big money and their lobbying power is what made the city change their mind.
Right.
And that's troublesome that a corporation can talk a city into changing a bylaw for them.
Well, they say here that the new zoning rules mean that major commercial centers over 2 hectares or 10,000 square meters don't have to follow separations distance rules. And most of the Edmonton shopping malls are that size. So, yes, Aurora's getting their foot in the door there. They're the first foot in the door. But now that should allow that for other businesses because they have private retail there in Alberta. So other businesses should be able to locate in malls as well.
Absolutely. It will open the door, hopefully, for other smaller mom and pop companies and locally run companies that aren't corporate. But we'll have to wait and see. Will there be special rules for corporate only? Well, there better not be because it's a bylaw that should be reflected to all by all. It's just a kicker that it took a corporation to get it done.
Yeah. Well, their lawyers have got money. They got money for their lawyers.
Yeah. So let's let the mom and pop and smaller businesses taking advantage of this brand new opportunity in shopping malls and not let the big corporations take over space. Yeah.
All right, let's go on to our last story before we take break. And I see here the NHL, their alumni association, is striking a deal with a cannabis company for medical exams and brain scans.
Yeah, Canopy Growth, of course, they're in on the deal. They've agreed to cover the costs of a double-blind randomized study, which will involve about 100 former players from the Toronto area, and they'll take about a year to produce the results, according to someone familiar with the matter.
Yeah. The study will explore whether cannabinoids might help to wean players off of addictive opioids. And if the results of the initial study are encouraging, that Cannabis Growth has agreed to fund a second study of former players with more subjects.
Yeah. Full agreement's not even supposed to be announced until this Saturday in the Toronto NHL Alumni Association. So Canopy Growth Director, Chief Doctor, Medical Doctor, Dr. Mark Ware, will be the neurosurgeon who is going to be in charge of the consultations for this. And they're going to be they're declining comment at this time until after the official release.
Yeah. They say this is a crystallizing moment. We're going to be using high-resolution imaging, biomarkers, words I can't even pronounce, testing. They say that we have a big need, the right agenda, and the right people. The NHL alumni are willing to commit their privacy and their souls to help others in the community, and I think Canopy is the right deal when it comes to medical science. They have the science, the facility has been followed, so on and so forth. So, yeah, it's good to see that that there's research being done. Sure, this is being done on hockey players, but this is much more than just about hockey.
It's about the fact that the study is being done, and it's a double-blind study.
So nobody knows what's going on.
Which is awesome. And we're talking about at least one of these almost every week on the show, talking about news from around the world, where in North America, either in the United States or in Canada, these double-blind studies are now being announced that they're being done. All of the physicians have been screaming, we don't have the studies, we don't have the studies. They're being done. That's the main key issue here, is that we are going to get these double-blind studies done now and show the results. And as a patient that's already seen the results, I'm pretty sure we're pretty confident in what they're going to show.
Yeah. Players who participated in the initial study will be examined over a 10-week time frame and undergo MRI brain scans and diffusion tensor image scans, which are used to construct a three-dimensional map of the brain and help to measure the movement of the blood and water in the nerve fibers in the complex organ. Whew, that was lots. Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot.
So they say that
Yeah.
abnormal flows of blood and water can signal injuries.
Yep. Yeah, well, that's signs of concussion, right? When
Yeah.
when the pathways are constricted to allow normal movement, and that's what causes issues later in life and leads to some of the traumatic brain issues that some of these players suffer later on from repeated hits to the head. So
That's right.
extremely great study that's going to be done here, and I love that the NHL is on board with it.
That's right, exactly. There will also be questions about their physical and mental health, including whether they use opiates or other drugs and whether they self-medicate. They also have blood tests, and they'll be checking on their speech and writing patterns. They test their memory and stuff. And I don't think they're doing that just because they're on cannabis. It's doing it because of their conditions. So.
Right. And in this study, of the 100 players anticipated for the study, 20 will be given a placebo and 80 will be given CBD pills taken twice a day over 10 weeks.
That's right.
And they'll be looking at the results.
And as I said, double blind means nobody knows. The doctor doesn't know who's got the cannabis or the placebo, and the patients don't know either.
Nobody knows. You're just given a bottle of pills, and the doctors are given bottles of pre-bottled pills, packaged pills with numbers on them, and that's all they get is a number. And only the person that packaged that study has the correlation of the number that what's inside that package.
Yeah.
So nobody knows.
Yeah.
So there's no way to cheat.
Yeah, I think it's. I don't know if this is endorsed by the NHL at all, but obviously the Alumni Association is all for this. It improves their the players, the past players' health, and hopefully they have good results, which helps be support from the top all the way down.
Yeah. And I mean, misuse and use of heavy narcotic painkillers is prominent in sport. So it's great to see the NHL looking after their players.
I agree. All right, well, it's break and medication time, Kim.
Absolutely.
Okay, we will be right back after a session. Meanwhile, the listeners will hear a bit of a global news report on how to roll a joint. All right. Now, Kim, just so you know, the person who's going to do this instruction is Spliffs McKenzie. We all know Spliffs McKenzie.
Yeah.
So she's going to teach us how to roll a joint from the global news. And you'll know when we're coming back when you hear Neil Young talking about another number. You're listening to the Reefer Reporters. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
I'm Spliffs McKenzie, and today we're going to learn how to roll a joint, specifically a one-pape. So first thing you need to do is break up your weed. So grab your grinder, open it up, grab your legal cannabis. I'm going to take out the stems and some of the leaves. Won't have anything puncturing the paper. Spread it out in the grinder so you don't clog her up. And then you're going to smush it and grind her up. You'll know when you're done because it becomes very easy to turn it. So there it is. Give it a little clank. So I like to fold it just kind of in the way that it's going to be rolled. I roll in the cone. Some people roll straight. Whatever's easier. I'm going to prepare my filter. Give it a 1-2 fold beforehand, and then roll it up. So it's like a little cage there to keep your weed in place and not in your mouth. And then just sprinkle it in. Now I'm just going to form it in the paper a bit. This is probably the most important part because it keeps the weed in place and just gets it ready for the roll. More at the top, less at the bottom for the filter. Gently roll it in there Don't put too little weed in. Don't put too much weed in. Definitely make sure your weed's not dry. Dry joints, dry weed makes it really, really hard to roll a joint. Just imagine dry weed is harder, so it does puncture through the paper, or it won't mold properly. Follow the paper. Make sure you're not folding it. Make sure it's actually rolling into it. So now you pretty much have everything in place. I just need to fold over and lick. And I don't like the word fold, it's roll over. Do not over lick. That is a common misconception. People think it's not sticking, so they're like, lick more. No, you're licking the glue right off. So many people do that. You wouldn't believe how many people think papers don't work or have crappy glue because they're simply over licking it. It's just a little thin strip, so just a little bit, and you're good. And now you have your joint. Ready to smoke?
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as a daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Marijuana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham, and no week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at 420radio.ca. An apple a day won't keep this doctor away, but a gram of cannabis may keep you away from the doctor. Find out how by tuning into The Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca. Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 420radio.ca.
Another number for the road. I feel able to get under any load. Though my feet aren't on the ground, I've been standing on the sound of some open-hearted people going down.
Hey, we're back. Huh?
We're live.
Yeah, see, this happens when you're live, eh? And you take your ear off what's going on for a second here. But yeah, we are live. We are live, and we are here at 420radio.ca. Kim, before we get back into the news, you're a 420 rally organizer, aren't you?
I am. We're doing it again this year. I help out with 420s all across Northern Ontario. Last year and again this year is in Timmins, Ontario, and really looking forward to it this year. Things are progressing along nicely. All our funding is in place, so we're good to go. We just need some donations of swag if anybody wants to contribute.
So with legalization, are you finding businesses are, maybe a little more open to things?
Absolutely. We are offering vendor tables this year, and we only have 2 left.
You only have 2 left?
Yeah,
nice.
They sold out in under a week. People contacted us from all over the place, and everybody wants to sell their wares. And I've got to say, 90% are not cannabis related. They're people that want to market to the cannabis lifestyle.
Wow, really? That's a change, isn't it?
It is. It's a huge change. Limited amount of cannabis-related material this year. I was quite surprised at the different enterprises that are coming out. Things like grow companies and a lot of artisans with crafts that can be geared to cannabis-related items.
So have you got any food booths there?
One, yes.
One. Well, our next story here, it just happens that research confirms that smoking cannabis leads to the junk food binges.
It's no joke, it's real. Legalizing recreational cannabis can induce junk food sales.
That's right. According to the researchers at University of Connecticut, people who are smoking cannabis go on a junk food binge, consuming mass quantities of chips and cookies.
They say the team found a link between recreational marijuana legalization and the increased consumption of certain high-calorie foods, suggesting there may be something more substantial to the urban myth of the munchies.
Yeah, well, the study that was published in the Journal of Social Science Research Network, the team looked at data on a monthly basis of monthly purchases of cookies, chips, and ice cream from convenience stores and grocery stores, drug and mass distribution stores in more than 2,000 countries or counties within the USA over a 10-year period. So this wasn't something that was just done through a few stores over a short period of time.
Yeah, it's a pretty wide study. Their analysis showed that legalizing recreational marijuana led to a 3.1% increase in ice cream purchases, a 4.1% increase in cookie purchases, and a 5.3% increase in chip purchases immediately after recreational marijuana sales began.
Yeah, well, they say, maybe those numbers might seem small to people, but statistically and economically, it could make a big difference, obviously.
Well, yeah, for sure. 5.3% increase. 4.1 and 3.1.
Yeah.
If you own a convenience store, you can check off above every one of those boxes, and you've just gained an increase, of over 10%.
Yeah. Now, I'm sure there's some people who would be concerned about this because, obesity and stuff like that. But then, maybe for some people like myself, I went into the hospital over a year and a half ago, and I still haven't gotten back to my weight before going to the hospital.
That's right. Eating binges are beneficial to many people. Yes, obesity and overweight is a big problem in North America today, but it doesn't apply to everybody. And I can totally relate with what you're saying. I could use a good, cookie binge once in a while just to put on a couple of pounds would be nice. So anything that induces that state is more than welcome for me. But I think it comes down to individual self-control. You can go on a binge. You don't necessarily have to eat the cookies, and maybe you can only do it once in a while as a treat. But as long as you have a balanced diet, we can't be responsible for maintaining the general public's weight issues through regulation. That's for sure.
That's for sure. All right, on to our next story. And this, I can see this being having, it's a good start, I guess. It's another one hopefully in the fold here, but that is that Great West Life expands optional medical cannabis coverage.
Yeah. There's another one jumping on the bandwagon. They're going to allow cannabis coverage to be added to your benefits package. So if you have work for an employer that has Great West Life as their insurance carrier, cannabis could be covered under your drug card. Now, I emphasize could be.
That's right.
Just because they offer it doesn't mean your company's going to get it.
That's right. Exactly. Because I know a patient in that same boat. Before this story even came out, they had written me and told me that, they believed that their insurance company, which was Great West Life, might be covering cannabis. And I sent her this link to this story, and then she's written me back and said that she couldn't get coverage. So I haven't heard back to her as why, but I know the person is a cancer survivor.
Yeah, it's not up to Great West Life. It's up to whoever is providing her coverage through Great West Life.
Mm-hmm.
Great West Life is the provider. You're the insurance provider, but the person paying for it is the one that calls the shots on what that policy allows. There's different scales of policies that employers can purchase. You can purchase this package, this package, this package, and just like all packages, they come with different things. So it's whatever package that employer has purchased. Cannabis isn't in all of the packages. That's like an add-on for your regular insurance.
Yeah.
If you're getting a rider for your jewelry, say, on your household insurance, it's a rider that you can put on the insurance company. But the final call on whether that rider is added is up to the one paying the bill for that insurance coverage. And that's normally your employer. So if your employer says, no, we don't want cannabis added on, it isn't.
Yeah. They may say, well, okay, we've got 60 employees. You've only got one person who's going to benefit from it. Why are we paying these extra high-cost premiums for that one
And we've
employee?
also got employers saying, no, I don't want it covered because then maybe they're going to use it. So, no, don't cover it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, here at Great West Life, they cover it for conditions relating to multiple sclerosis, cancer, HIV, and AIDS, symptoms related to palliative care, and their plan members will be directed to Shoppers Drug Mart.
Of course. Shoppers Drug Mart and Loblaws Corporation was one of the few companies that opted into adding the cannabis coverage onto their plans at the onset when it first became available from some of the insurance companies when this first started about a year ago. And that's because they're in the game. They want people using them coming from their business. That's their business, is sales. And this increases sales, let's face it. So that's why their coverage is there. Hopefully, other businesses will opt into adding this coverage on, and it won't just be coming from the ones that are trying to sell it.
That's right. Yeah. And hopefully down the road, patients will be able to walk into the store and get their medication, their cannabis medication, and walk out just like they do any other medication, because it doesn't make sense. Here we are 18 years and counting, and we still can't do that.
Yeah.
Here we are, 4 months after cannabis legalization, and you can walk into 200 plus stores in the country.
Yeah.
And if it's in stock,
and if it's in stock, and just a footnote to your coverage, there is a cap, and it's the criteria. You have to meet eligibility guidelines to get this coverage from Great West Life, even if your employer has opted in. And there's a cap at $5,000 per year.
Yeah. And so for some patients, that won't last very long. No, especially if you have to buy from an LP or a Shoppers Drug Mart or wherever, where the prices are just astronomical compared to anywhere else.
Yeah. So there you go. It's a step in the right direction. But again, not one tool maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Well, for those people who are doing without, we do have a suggestion, and that's our next story right here.
There's always options, right?
There's always options. That is to visit the Green Mile. And the Green Mile is?
It's just out in the Kawarthas, out by you.
Yeah, that's right. It sure is. It's a cannabis, they call it the Cannabis Tourism Destination of the Kawarthas. The Green Mile is along Highway 45, north of Coburg in Northumberland County, and it's on the reserve in Alderville and I can tell you there are numerous stores there. That's for sure.
Well, it got its name, honestly, the Green Mile. If you're willing to skirt the edges of legality, depending on whether or not, on who you talk to, whether or not it's skirting, that's another question, of course. But yeah, you just visit places like the Green Mile out there in the Kawarthas. I mean, we're in March, so cottage country is in a lot of people's minds, and a lot of people do their vacationing and cottaging and trailering out in the Peterborough area. So this would be a great summer, is a great opportunity to visit maybe a new tourist attraction.
But you know what the problem is for people who want to go get to a store to get their legal cannabis? Peterborough and the Kawarthas did not get one of the 5 stores going to Eastern Canada. 2 went to, 2 went to Ottawa, 2 went to Kingston.
Yeah.
There's nobody at all.
Nobody at all in cottage
district.
Nobody at all in cottage country. So you've got the Green Mile. There's over a dozen shops in that 1 mile area on the stretch of 45. So there's lots to choose from.
That's right. Oh, there is. There's lots to choose from. They say here, in fact, the Alderville First Nation has already become the cannabis tourism destination in the Kawarthas for locals and visitors alike. And that's only going to grow.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I believe there's one part here where they, here we are, where one store, the Medicinal Wheel, they had a conversation with the owner, Rob Stevenson, and he has 30 employees that work for them. 20 of them are Indigenous. He's got 15,000 registered clients, and he gets 250 new clients every day.
Yeah.
And yet there's no store in the Peterborough area.
Yeah, I met Rob at the Indigenous Cup last year. Very cool guy, easygoing, great to talk to. He's got stuff going on. And once again, we're looking at this from First Nations territory. So they're self-governed. They're outside of the LP system. And this is on Native land, so perfectly legal for them on First Nations territory at this moment in time, at least. As we spoke about in a previous story about it going to court. So we have to wait and see what happens with that. But right now, I mean, the Medicine Wheel, there's a lot going on there, like there is in other First Nations territories. And it's a great stop for when you're on your way to cottage country. I don't know how the provincial government could think that a lottery system would work when it misses such key areas in our province where so many tourists go.
Well, the Medicinal Wheel, the owner says that they went and attended a meeting down at Tyaganaga, Mohawk Territory, which I'm sure probably Tim, Legacy 420, our sponsors, were more than likely involved in.
Yeah.
And, there's like over 50 dispensaries down in that area. But he attended that meeting. He heard the stories about how cannabis was helping people. They heard how it was helping the community economically through direct employment and spin-off companies. And he had to do something.
Yeah. That's right. When we met him, it wasn't the Cup. I said the Cup, and I was incorrect. I misspoke there. It was the Indigenous Music Fest where we met Rob, and great guy. A lot of people are taking their lead from what's going on in Tyaganaga. We're seeing it across the country. A lot of what's going on in Saskatchewan. Is as a result of what's going on in Tyaganaga. And First Nations can really take the lead here where the province has dropped the ball.
Yeah, exactly. They have. Let's see. The Tyaganaga Council, they've adopted interim regulations with final regulations being voted on in April. In Alderville, they're taking similar approach, but without the direct involvement of the Band Council, who has refused to take a role in regulating the local cannabis industry. Gee, that's interesting. Yeah. They're leaving it up to individual band members to exercise their sovereign rights. So the Band Council is even on they're not taking a position.
But they're not by not taking a position, they're not standing against. So that's kind of how Tyendinaga got started. They didn't stand against them, and now that they've shown the prosperity, they've chosen to stand with. But in the onset, that was just, well, we're not going to do anything. So it's not the first time we've seen this evolve like this. And I think they leave it up to see, what are you guys going to do with this? And are you going to make it good? Then, okay, we're going to stand with you. And if you don't make it good, then we can still take a position against.
And as I mentioned, they are, the local band members are doing everything. They formed an association. It is called the Mississaugas of Rice Lake Cannabis Association, which is working to implementing a process of self-regulation of the industry on the Elderville First Nations territory. Yeah.
Great initiatives going on. It's been fantastic to see the evolution and the way that they're working together. For the most part, there's a few that are not working together, but for the most part, they've got their shit together more than the province does. That's for sure.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. And as time goes on, we're seeing more and more doing this on their own. So.
Yeah, you can read more about, they points to Indigenous rights, UN declarations, and self-governing that gives them the right to do this. And there's almost a step-by-step how-to for you that you can find out how to advance your Indigenous community, no matter where you are in Ontario, and perhaps make a brand new industry for prosperous change for Indigenous territories everywhere.
Yeah, well, Rob says that he went to the OPP and gave them a presentation to the same one he basically gave to the chief and council, showing them why he's doing this and how he's doing this. He said it was received very well. He met with the police a few times. The police would stop in just to see how things are going. Things have been obviously going pretty good. And I know when I drive by there, the parking lot is full.
Always. He's doing great things. He's got a knowledgeable staff, and those are the stores that are the busiest. The ones that are there for the right reasons. They're there because they know the health benefits, and it doesn't matter what your reason is for consuming it. You're going to get the health benefits, and that's all that matters in the long run. And that's the way they look at it. So, here, come take some medicine. I'm glad you like it.
Yeah. And I think it's good to see that, with the absence of the band council that formed an association, and the businesses are all working together to come up with something. So.
Yeah, for sure. Great stuff going on out in southern Ontario,
Yes, that's my local story. And just on a side note, on a local story, I'm in a little wee town here where I live. We're lucky if we have 1,000 people here, and it is called, town. I just noticed in the news that there's a little hamlet. Hamlet is very small, right?
Yes, a hamlet is a very, very tiny little community.
Well, there's a hamlet called Lakeport, and it's between Colborne and Lake Ontario, which is near Cobourg area. It's just a little wee area, small place. They've got a licensed producer.
A licensed producer in a hamlet.
In a hamlet. Yeah, they've bought us an old factory. And they're converting it over to be a licensed producer facility to grow and all that. Of course, it's in the news because there's controversy over it. It just happens that the property this is on, it goes over something like 2 municipalities and 4 other places. So there's some are saying that, well, we weren't notified, and they said, well, we notified so-and-so, and so there's some controversy over the notification thing.
Multiple jurisdictions. Whenever you get into rural Ontario, you've got boundaries all over the place, and our property on our farm is in the same situation. Multiple jurisdictions that it spans over. Development is a pain in the ass.
Yeah, and that's what they're going through That's what they're going through right now, but, just because you're just a little wee hamlet doesn't mean you couldn't possibly get a big place that create jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, all right. And talking about big jobs and creating things, we see here down in the U.S. Cory Booker, who is running for the Democrat hopefuls for an election in 2020. He says actually he's introducing a cannabis legalization bill.
Yeah, New Jersey is on board. Legalization is moving forward. The bill's Senate co-sponsors include a number of 2020 hopefuls that are looking at this as an election and prominence in election in the consensus in the Democratic Party. So coming forward.
Yeah, there's several names there they mentioned who are on board. Senator Kamala Harris, Elizabeth Warren, Kristen Gillibrand, Michael Bennett, Bernie Sanders, they're all on board. And this, they call it the Marijuana Justice Act, would also expunge the records of those who have been charged with the crime for using or possessing it and direct resources towards reentry and job training programs. And here we're just talking earlier at the show about pardons in Canada. And here they're making a law to expunge records.
Along with legalization. They're rolling it all into one. Okay, well, if we're going to legalize it, we're going to reintroduce legalization here. We're going to do it all, and we're going to do it all right now. Like, okay, if we're doing it, then nobody should have a record that ever got convicted of it. Like, let's make it part of it. So it all happens simultaneously. Somebody's thinking.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the Senator, Booker there, he says the war on drugs has not been a war on drugs. It's been a war on people, and disproportionately people of color and low-income individuals. He says that the Marijuana Justice Act seeks to reverse decades of this unfair, unjust, and failed policy by removing marijuana from the list of controlled substances and making it legal at the federal level.
Well, apparently they'll be introducing this bill to the House of Republicans this Thursday, live on Facebook.
Oh, it'll be interesting to watch that.
Yeah, it'll be taking place during the legislation in the House of Representatives in New Jersey. Changing drug laws will be more equitable and has been a central tenet of Booker's broader justice reform goals as he makes his run for president.
Yeah. Well, let's hope that more and more get on board with this, and things can change, because it doesn't make sense to have more countries around the world, as we're reporting on almost on a weekly basis, that are coming in with cannabis legalization in some form federally in their countries, but yet here we have the United States, the ones who forced a lot of this on countries. Are going to be the last ones to do it federally, by the way things are going, and yet all the states are legalizing it. So wouldn't it make sense to do it federally?
All the states. We talked a little bit at the very start about struggling to pick out stories to talk about today. And the ones that I went through, I've got a little list here. U.S. states that are talking about enacting laws or, loosening the belt, so to speak, on existing laws that they have there today. I went through Vermont, Iowa, Virginia, Hawaii, Illinois, Missouri, Florida, New Mexico, New Hampshire, and a bunch of others that I didn't even write down because I started this list after I had already passed them. In stories. And I thought, well, you know what? I'm going to start writing. How many states are there? And that's when I started writing them down. That's just this week that are talking about legalization within the United States. At this point, I don't think there's any state that isn't at least having the discussion.
That's right. Well, we've been reporting on this one state, Florida, who has, we've been talking about how they're legalizing it so you can smoke medical cannabis, because right now the law doesn't allow them to smoke their cannabis. But now they're talking about legalizing recreational cannabis for adults over the age of 21.
Yeah, well, we no sooner got through the smoking law thing, and we got rid of that, and now consumption is allowed, and lo and behold, less than a week later, here we are with a bill to allow cannabis consumption for everyone over 21. The bill is called HB 1117, was filed on Tuesday by Miami Beach Republican Michael Greco and Orlando Representative Carlos Guillermo Smith. Under the bill, anybody under over 21 will be able to use, possess, and transport up to 2.5 ounces of cannabis with pot accessories.
That's right. And if the bill passes, cannabis connoisseurs will be able to grow their own plants and keep the fruits of their labor. I'm just looking here. I'm just trying to see. I'm not seeing where it tells you how many plants a person would be able to grow.
Yeah, it doesn't dictate the number of plants. It just says that growing will be incorporated, is incorporated in the bill. We don't have a whole lot of details, and the bill isn't laid out. It's pretty much just an overview of the situation. But bill is on the forefront in Florida. So, good news for all of the snowbirds around.
Yeah, I just pulled up a link here on that grow thing. And I'm just trying to see, okay, adult use. It's actually the Senate's website where I'm at here.
Oh, very cool. I know there's a lot of snowbirds that we spend winters in Florida still, and as we've seen from previous news stories, a lot of the senior population are the biggest consumers of cannabis and medical cannabis right now. So this is very good news for snowbirds that spend a lot of time in Florida.
Yes, exactly. It's because there is a lot of Canadians that go down there. Yeah, don't forget, you can't cross the border with your cannabis.
That's right, you can't take it with you. So if Florida enacts a law allowing for recreational, then that's in good favor for the snowbirds going down there, because our prescriptions don't do us any good when we're down there for buying under their medicinal program that they have installed because we're from out of town.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this new law is talking about having legal stores. He's talking about legal businesses, manufacturers, people to sell.
That'd be great. So they've got a full bill on top. They've got a plan, like many other states. They've looked into this carefully already, obviously, and come up with something that they think will work for their state. So it's good to see another state on board pushing forth a legalization platform.
Well, Kim, it's break time. I know after the break we have a story on another state and its legalization situation, but I think right now we'll take a break. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. It's medication time.
That's right, for sure. That means that Kim and I will be right back. Meanwhile, your listeners, you'll be hearing more about joint rolling tips, okay? This is another person doing another round of instructions on how to roll a joint. But this time, it's by a person who is a recipient of the Order of Canada. And you can hear some more Neil Young as well. You're listening to Reefer Reporters. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome best-selling author, award-winning broadcaster, winner of the 1959 Stephen Leacock Medal for Humor, companion of the Order of Canada, and marijuana connoisseur, Mr. Pierre Burton.
Hi, I'm Pierre Burton. Looking back on my career, I cannot count the number of times a young man or a young woman has come up to me and said, "Hey, Mr. Burton, what's the best way to roll a joint?" Well, let me tell you, it's not that way. Well, put that down and we'll start over. First of all, you need a good rolling surface. May I suggest either the National Dream or my latest book, Prisoners of the North. Avoiding novelty or colored paper, I prefer white paper to add to your mix, and being in Ontario, we always use hydroponic. So be sure to remove any twigs and seeds. Now, the way you distribute the mix will determine the shape of your joint. I prefer the classic cone-shaped joint, what the young people call a coner. Now for the tricky bit. Pick everything up, start in the middle, roll outwards, and let your thumbs do most of the work. And when you have an even consistency, wrap the excess paper around the joint, wet the paper, and seal the joint. Excellent. Firm, but not too firm. Just the way I like it. And remember, Canada, it's the loose joints that tend to fall apart, leaving unsightly toke burns on your chairs or on your bow tie. It's a tragedy we all want to avoid, don't we? I'm Pierre Burton, and that's how to roll a joint.
This has been a Monday Report Celebrity Tip.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Tamarawana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham, and no week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gignac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at 420radio.ca. An apple a day won't keep this doctor away, but a gram of cannabis may keep you away from the doctor. Find out how by tuning into The Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca. Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 420radio.ca.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
To get under any load, though my feet aren't on the ground, I've been standing on the sound of some open-hearted people going down.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and...
Okay, we're back from our second medication session, and we are the Reefer Reporters, and if you're not sure, yes, we are live here at 420radio.ca. But if you miss our live shows, don't forget they're also available afterwards as a podcast at our website or on audio apps such as iTunes, iHeartRadio. It's out there. You can catch us there as well. Okay, Kim, we are into our last segment of the news here, and before we took a break, we were talking about how Cory Booker was bringing a cannabis legalization bill for federal government there. We were talking about legalization happening in other states, Florida, for example, right before the break, and now we are going to Hawaii.
Yeah, we're off to the islands. We were hopeful for Hawaii and the islands jumping on board with legalization when the bill was introduced into their house there earlier this week. Well, the results are in, and our hopes were flaunted. Once again, it was struck down in Hawaii.
Yes, once again. So they've tried this before. Their efforts to legalize, as they say, went up in smoke, as some leaders are concerned about the flying in the face of federal law, which is, still against that. But yet, how many states have legalized for medical and recreational use, and you don't see them being stomped on by the federal government?
No, they're not at all. Hawaii, it's not one of the continental United States, so it's off by itself. I think I know where the people's concerns are coming from. You look at places like Puerto Rico, and what's going on with United States efforts towards its non-continental states that are part of the Union. If you don't play by their rules, and even if you do sometimes, you can wind up getting left out in the cold, and I think that's what they're worried about.
Yeah, well, it says here that the bill had to pass the Senate Health Committee and Senate Ways and Means Committee by Friday, but it never even got discussed. It never ever made it to a meeting, which effectively killed the bill. And the surprising thing is that the Senate Majority Leader has introduced the cannabis legalization bills for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
And this time, half the Democrats, it had seemed to have support, but they didn't. It didn't go anywhere.
They've given out licenses. There's medical cannabis dispensaries and stuff. But, the legislature just didn't approve anything. And now, everything is going up in smoke.
Yeah, that's right. Florida is known for its frustrating slow rollouts. And this is obviously a slow rollout. Because they seemed progressive when they approved medical cannabis nearly 2 decades ago. But it's taken another 15 years for the island lawmakers to set up a dispensary system. It took them 15
years. This has been in the works in Hawaii before California. And they're still working on it, and they still can't pass a consensus in their legislature. And that's been the holdup from the start. Every time, bills get introduced and everybody is on board and things start moving, and then it gets to the final step and it bombs, and then
when I read into this story of businesses paying big fees for licenses and stuff like that, and then it turns out they didn't have any product to put into these places, and it almost sounds like, and they had a lottery too, so it almost sounds like about the same thing that happened here in Ontario.
Sounding very, very familiar, isn't it? And the end result is it bombs consistently, time and time again. And they've been going through this cycle for 15 years. So it kind of makes you wonder where Doug Ford took his cues from at this point, really. You're absolutely right. The similarities are astounding here. And all that winds up happening is the regular guy and the business people spending, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars over time, all going to the government, and nothing happens and no one gets a license.
And here's another disturbing thing that I'm seeing here that doesn't make sense whatsoever to me. As you know, Hawaii is made up of several islands. Yeah, 7 of them.
Yeah.
If you're licensed to consume medical cannabis in Hawaii, you cannot use that same license if you live on one island. It doesn't count if you go to another island.
Yeah, you can't go from Honolulu to Maui.
Yeah, so that'd be like saying, okay, it's legal in Canada, but your medical license isn't any good in Alberta, Quebec.
Yeah.
Certain provinces. You got to have to have almost a separate license for each location.
Yeah. Or
I don't know the program, obviously, but
you're good in Toronto, but not in Northern Ontario.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know the law in Hawaii, but it doesn't make sense why, if you have a license for Hawaii medical.
I guess individual islands are self-governed. I have no idea, but
would you need a different license for each island? Do they even have it available?
I don't have a clue, but that's.
Neither do I.
I mean, but being such, I mean, it is a small trip. Some people live on one island and work on another.
Yeah, well, if they did that, they couldn't take their medical cannabis with them.
That's it, or you'd have to have a license on both.
If it's even available.
And I'm sure if it is, it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And if not, they'd probably set up a weed trap.
Yeah, they just might set up a weed trap. That's something else that seems to be going on in some of the U.S. states these days. Big problems, border crossings. We see it on the islands in Hawaii. We see it on the mainland in the United States. Because cannabis isn't legal on a federal level is why all of this shit is happening. Even if one state is bordering another state, and all you're doing is crossing a little line on the road to separate those states. You can't legally transport your cannabis across that line.
That's right. And they use an example here. On a recent visit to Michigan, 10 investigations had no trouble finding that Ohio license plates and Ohio medical cannabis patients. Some declined to comment on camera, but they told them that they came to Michigan because pricing is still too high in Ohio, and Michigan laws accept out-of-state medical cannabis patients.
Yeah, well, I mean, we see that happen on border towns here in Canada. If a product is cheaper because of marketing, because of taxes, because of manufacturing, because of whatever reason, if it's cheaper in one province than it is in another, if you live close to a border, you shop in that other province for that particular item. It happens here in Northern Ontario quite a bit because we border Quebec. And many things are cheaper in Quebec than they are here in Ontario, largely because of taxes. So I know exactly what this is. Anybody who lives on a border town knows what this is. Cross-border shopping is commonplace. So it's happening in the cannabis industry as well. Ohio patients are probably 60% of Michigan's current database of shoppers.
Yeah. Like we have, there are laws here in Canada. For example, there was a case there where a fellow in New Brunswick bought a bunch of alcohol in Quebec, and he went to New Brunswick with it, and they said, you're not allowed to do that. And that actually went all the way to the Supreme Court of Canada, because just as cannabis was coming legal, that was a big question here as well. Yeah. Would each of the licensed producers have to grow in the province in order for it to be available there, or
selling in that province?
Yeah, selling of it.
You're only supposed to be able to sell where you actually manufacture. That's the law for alcohol. So that's why all of these mass producers have distribution or distilling properties in every province.
Yeah, because the court ruled with the liquor law and the things that person wasn't supposed to take their booze across the border, and so people went, that means we're going to be stuck with it too on the cannabis end. So.
Yeah, but we see it all the time. I mean, living in border towns, even people that have kids, back to school shopping, in August and stuff, when you're getting the kids ready to go back to school, the clothing stores that are in the Quebec side, they have half the sales tax than we have here.
Mm-hmm.
So you go there and you shop there for all the clothes because they're cheaper. We do it all the time. We do it with everything. Why wouldn't we do it with this? Of course we're going to do it with this.
Of course you're going to do that.
The problem with that is, that logic is cops know it too. So they've decided to use this particular border town as a place to operate a sting operation and start pulling drivers over.
Yeah, and then they call it a weed trap. And obviously that's what it is. That's what they're sitting there waiting for. So
Yeah. patients have been pulled over, and they say, the only reason they're there is because they know patients are driving over the border and buying their cannabis over there. Cannabis is being confiscated, they're given fines, and now you've got a patient without their medicine and without any money and owing more money. What's the purpose of this, other than, harming patients?
Yeah, I know. It's just an imaginary line. I don't know. Well, let's go from a bad news story to a good news story.
Yeah, sounds good to me. We've got some dispensary owners down in the United States that
California.
their hearts are bigger than houses, and they found out about some homeless shelter that needed some beds, and a bunch of them just decided that to fix that situation.
That's right. They decided so much that on Monday the group. Actually, the Ventura County Regional Homeless Shelter received 100 beds for the homeless from the local cannabis dispensaries.
Yeah, 100 beds. A bunch of one dispensary owner got together with a bunch of other dispensary owners. They all chipped in what they could chip in relative to their business, and they got enough money to buy 100 beds. 5 local cannabis dispensaries donated towards the cause, and the biggest one was coming in at $17,000.
Yeah. Well, I know they're talking here to one fella, and he says he's been homeless for 5 years, and he thinks this is just awesome. This is a gift that nobody dreamed of, he says, and it's going to make a lot of people comfortable, and I'm sure it is.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it shows, this was not corporate. This was grassroots dispensary owners, independent people that own dispensaries in the United States in an open market, mom and pop shops that got together and saw a need, reached out to other like-minded individuals and said, hey, you guys want to get on board with this? And everybody was an astounding yes. Community got together, saw a need, and fixed the problem.
Yeah. Well, it says here the 5 local cannabis dispensaries donated towards the cause. They collected $25,000 from them. They got another $10,000 from the Community Benefit Fund in order to do this. And it says here that one dispensary is called Skunk Masters. They donated $17,000 alone.
Big donation from a single company, that's for sure. Great outpouring of support down in California. The city of Port Hueneme is doing good things with the cannabis community, helping out locals in need.
Yep. Well, not only did the shelter provide a roof, a hot meal, and now beds, they also provided social services, and to help the dream come true, 30 carpenters from the local 805 volunteered the time to assemble the beds. They're carpenters. They're not even bed builders. There are no bed builders, but the carpenters got together and they went in there and gave them a hand. So, it wasn't just the cannabis community; it was other communities as well that got in there to help them out.
Well, that's it. It takes just one to get the ball rolling, and the whole community dove on board for this cause after that. And it's great to see local enterprise working with the cannabis community, for a good cause.
Yes, it is, for sure. And talking about beds and cannabis, our next story has to do with that.
It sure does. Cannabis tourism. We talk about cannabis tourism every week. Big enterprise coming up. Everybody has legalization. People are used to consuming cannabis as a recreational product now in the open. They want places to do that. There's a big festival called Coachella that's held in the desert hot springs every year that a lot of people go to en masse. Thousands of people attend that festival every year. In the spirit of Coachella, somebody is building a permanent hotel that's 420 friendly in the middle of the desert in Hot Springs, Nevada. It's going to be 120 room hotel friendly. room, according to a recent article in Weedmap.
Yeah, it will sit inside of the Chichilin Cannabis Business Park in the Hot Springs, as you said. Let's see. Yeah, exactly. This apparently is a business park that spans 160 acres and sets out to be an incubator for companies to operate and dispense.
Yeah, it's an entire business park. The entire theme is 420. It's all cannabis friendly, businesses and enterprises. You've got everything from glass blowers, manufacturers there, cannabis packagers, to cannabis manufacturers, cannabis sales, everything cannabis, or a business that can incorporate cannabis into it or help out the cannabis community in some way, as well as other enterprises. The largest sort of a deal on the planet that I know of. And now they're incorporating this great hotel. So you can stay in your hotel and you come out to this giant industrial mall that could give you absolutely everything that you could be looking for that has to do with cannabis.
Yeah, there's going to be a tourism center, education facilities. And they say here, art installations along the Lazy River Pool.
Yeah. Lazy River Pool, smoking a doobie on the Lazy River Pool, looking at the cannabis art that's available, jump out and go shopping and then get back in.
Get out and go to get a cannabis infused food and drink from one of the restaurants. Stop for a dab, whatever your heart's desires, it seems, at this place. The Coachella will offer plenty of opportunities to partake with cannabis, restaurants offering cannabis-infused food, drinks, and a cannabis concierge to recommend other hot spots in the desert. The resort will also offer hemp-based linens, robes, and others amenities aimed at the needs of the 420 crowd. Yep, they hope to open by the end of 2019, and some think it might be pretty quick, but you just never know.
Coachella takes place, the next one I think is in 2020, and they'll be fully up and operational for the music festival there, 2020.
Yes. Well, Kim, on to our last story of the show.
Yeah, the last story of the show, and we're going to jump on the plane and go out to Switzerland.
That's right, because in Switzerland, they are looking for up to 5,000 people to smoke cannabis in a pilot study to help shape new rules for recreational use.
Yeah, they says Switzerland already allows cannabis products less than 1% THC, so it's basically hemp. And now it's begun to explore new ways of regulating more potent cannabis. The University of Bern is doing the study.
They say that there's about 20,000 people in Switzerland who use it illegally.
200,000.
200,000, yes, 200,000, my mistake. And without undermining the general cannabis prohibition, they like to do these tests to come up with new models. So they're looking for 5,000 volunteers. What do you think, Kim? Should we go to Switzerland?
I could live in Switzerland to volunteer for this study. I'd have no problem with doing that.
Yes. They say here that cities point to the negative impact of the current laws, illegal trade in public places that is increasingly disruptive and makes people feel unsafe, and resource-sapping efforts to curb the drug sales in urban areas. As a result, some cities want to find out how controlled access to cannabis affects its consumption, buying behaviors, and the health of the participants.
Yeah,
why would they have to do their own study? Why wouldn't they just look at all these kinds of countries going around the world? They got
the Swiss are funny that way. They've got to do things their own way. They don't rely on other people's studies, that's for sure. The Swiss are pretty firm-minded people, and they're going to need their own research to do this with their own people. So the new study, the proposed pilot study project, would be limited to cannabis and with only adults who demonstrate that they already use it and are allowed to participate.
So how do you get, if you got a person who's already used it?
They're going to have to admit to illegal activity in order to participate in the study.
They're gonna test them on all these different things, right?
Yeah.
And then they're gonna consume cannabis and then test them again.
Yeah, I would think.
To get a wholesale, or a whole result, wouldn't they be better to start off with people who don't use it?
Wow.
Because they haven't been affected yet?
I would think they'll advance to that at a later point. The Swiss are funny people. They they take their time with these things. They'll start with this and then they'll move on at a snail's pace. But they'll do all the independent studies. But one thing about it won't take years for them to do it. They put their mind to doing something, they do it. They do all the studies. They do it right now. They come to their conclusions and then they move forward on the result. And it doesn't take years to do that. But they are very, very concise with their analysis. That's for sure.
That's right. That's right. Well, Kim, that's it. That's a wrap.
That's our wrap for another week on the Reefer Reporters. So much news. We could go on for another hour, but no, I can't.
Yeah. No. As we discussed earlier, we could do this right tonight. Today's show could have gone through till 6 o'clock. There was so much
easily.
news.
There was so much news. We could be on here till 6 o'clock. That's a general overview. Check out the site for more information along with the stuff that we talked about today.
That's right. All of the stories we discussed today are all there for everybody to see. And if they're not there, they will be there shortly. Okay, well, that's our Reefer Report from the Legacy420.com news desk for March the 4th, 2019. As we close the show, we'd like to say thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed it, please share it with someone who you know loves the news, even if they don't love cannabis. Until the next time, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
I'll catch you later.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science. Literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing? Nothing? Why not?
Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website.
Sounds like a cool website.
Yeah, it's alright. Oh, wait, I might have it.
You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.